Live. Welcome to Brain Milk, everybody listening on the podcast. We got some people trickling in live now. Welcome, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Happy
Merry,
holidays.
Merry Christmas. Last good week of 2025. Last time we talked a little bit about like the year in review on our last podcast together. We were kind of talking about like how the year went. And I thought we'd start off kind of talking about looking ahead for 2026. Do you have any predictions on what 2026 is going to be like for the American government?
I think the Congress will be less productive next year
Less
than this
productive?
year. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as like they get closer and closer to the November elections. Any Republicans who see a blue wave forming and how much they want to save their seats or at least try put up a
Yeah.
fighting, effort. And then, Mike Johnson's already complaining that they have an incredibly small majority. It's like, yeah, that's true, you do. And say basically using it as an excuse why nothing can get done because it's a very complicated, tricky situation. And I guess his opinion is also still that they do their most productive work when they're not in session. So
Yeah.
what does that mean?
It means they're going and doing like crappy events in their home districts and talking to their constituents for once, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's funny
Uh,
to think about. You're doing all that time fundraising, and then like imagine knowing you're going into a blue wave election and you're doing nothing to try to rectify that at all. Like all these people from Biden districts who like probably have a lot of people who use Obamacare subsidies, and I imagine they know the writing's on the wall. It's like that doesn't get passed, so they don't even make an effort to try. But then, like, also you're wasting your weekends being away from your family to go fundraise just to lose your seat anyway.
yeah.
Uh,
Do you have any predictions on the odds that they even keep the House, like Republicans? I mean, obviously it's probably like 90%, but like a lot of Republicans want to retire, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene's retiring. Apparently Nancy Mace was thinking about retiring. A bunch of other people are grumbling about it. So at some point, they're going to have to start strategizing the order that they retire, right? Because of these special elections. So they're going to really have to stagger everyone who wants to retire, which is kind of BS anyway, because, you get elected, you think you should finish out the term, right? Wouldn't you?
yeah, I would think so. Are they gonna like for sure leave before November?
What's that?
Are they gonna for sure leave before November?
Um, who?
The Republicans, like you're saying they're retiring or whatnot, but
Well, I think a
you
lot
got a
of them
sound
want
problem.
to. Yeah, potentially. Let me see. Yeah. Um, yeah, but I don't know. With the retirements, on top of that, the majority is so low that there's a possibility that a couple like untimely deaths, like our Congress is pretty old. We have a lot of very elderly people. So like it would be interesting if like Marjorie Taylor Greene retires, one or two more people retire, and then they have like a margin of error of one, and then maybe somebody has a stroke or a heart attack and has to retire. But it would be a kind of interesting thing if before the midterms, the House switches control to the Democrats. That would be a
That'd be
really
funny.
fascinating development.
Well, and even if they don't completely lose control, I read that 10 Republicans in the House are thinking about running for governor in their respective states. So what does that mean? So not only they barely have a majority, but if you have three people doing fundraisers for their governorship race that they're going to be starting pretty soon, like are they just not going to be in the House for long stretches of time? They won't have the votes to pass anything, even if they want to do something.
Yeah, I guess so. And it is kind of interesting in terms of the do nothing Congress, like we've talked about in the past, how this is like really a do nothing Congress. They've passed a one crappy big budget bill that like really the main onus of it was once again just cutting taxes for the rich. And like there's so many divisions in the Republican Party. They don't really have that many, like what's really unifying them? They have no agenda. They don't really have any bold proposals, right? After all these years, they still don't have a healthcare replacement. They're not doing anything on infrastructure, right? Like the only thing that still unifies them is just cutting taxes for already super rich and wealthy people. Um,
Well, I just love Republicans like playing with the whole healthcare debate. Like it's like the high school student who didn't even look up Spark Notes or ChatGPT what the book was about, just showing up to class and you're talking about a book report. You have no idea. It's like 16 years go by and you don't have anything you can credibly say about Obamacare. You don't have
yeah,
any healthcare plan that you're willing to say, oh yeah, my bullet point is this. Like you haven't even
yeah.
done that. I just think that's a little funny.
Well, I mean, there's like literally nothing they can do, right? Because they don't want socialized medicine in any shape or form, right? So if they get rid of these subsidies that allows for some kind of public option, like they have nothing in replacement because they don't want anything like a public option. They don't want the government involved. And I guess Trump's plan is to just give some of that subsidy money straight to the people, I guess, which
Hmm.
that's kind of weird. And every time the government does that, it, it's kind of isn't it just kind of a invitation for all the healthcare companies to just jack up the prices of the amount of money that the government is giving people to spend?
Yeah,
So I don't
and
know.
then it's like a huge question of like, okay, so you're giving the same amount of money to everybody. That makes no sense. If you're going to come up with a
Yeah,
policy, like, shouldn't you stagger it based or give different amounts depending how old you are? Another thing is like that's the same thing. Like if you go out and use that money to go buy healthcare, they're just going to jack up the prices. It's like people
yeah,
routinely forget that like economists have kind of figured out human nature a little bit. Like
yeah,
humans aren't like completely like rational all the time, but they're not irrational all the time either. So I think we can sit down and think about what people are going to do and what incentives are going to have a little
yeah,
harder before we pass these ideas. But again, that's just something they kind of said off the cuff, right? When people were demanding that they have some other plan, that was the best they could
yeah,
come up
right.
with. Give everyone $2,000. What if you're 65 and have pre-existing conditions? How's
Yeah,
that going to?
you have 13 medications.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I like the Mike Johnson's been saying like, "Oh, we've been having great conversations. We're making we've got all these ideas." And it's like, "All right, name one." I'm
yeah.
calling bullshit. Like I wish one reporter would be like, "Give us one of your ideas."
It's
Cuz
like you
like
love that dead singer. Name three of their songs.
yeah, right. Yeah. Here's another one. What do you think are the chances that Mike Johnson is still Speaker of the House this time next year? Do you think he'll finish the entire year? You have Marjorie Taylor Greene and some other Republicans grumbling that he is like he's terrible, and that they're kind of like putting it out there and seeing what the who will bite in terms of kicking him out. The rules he had to agree to become Speaker in the first place, it does not require many Republicans to throw him out, right? And then, of course, there's also a possibility that Donald Trump, if like let's say the Epstein files keep exploding and make it look really bad, and like public opinion is really calling for him to like step down or resign, I think it might convenience Trump to convince some of his bootlickers in the House to kick Johnson out and then protect himself. Because I guess if you don't have a Speaker of the House, right, and the House is not doing regular order, you can't impeach you can't impeach Trump if there's no
Yeah.
Speaker, right?
You can't have any of the committees investigate anything. You
Yeah,
can't.
right.
That's pretty funny. No one can write a letter to the Department of Justice.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting to try to put like a percentage on it, but like one, you have Republicans that don't like him, and apparently a lot of the women members of Congress, the Republicans are really upset with Mike Johnson because they think he's a little sexist and like all the positions and like decision making he's giving to men. So
Yeah, I read
like
that.
that's not. Yeah,
Did you
go
see
ahead.
that op-ed?
No,
So
you
the
want to explain it?
Democratic whip, Catherine Clark, wrote an op-ed. I think it was like in the Boston Times or some Boston newspaper. She's from Massachusetts, but she said that she called Mike Johnson a misogynist specifically,
Yeah,
verbatim, and
yeah,
he said, she said in the op-ed that Mike Johnson apparently has blamed school shootings and no fault, or she said that Mike Johnson has blamed school shootings on no fault divorce and radical feminism. So that's why like disgruntled kids shoot up schools is because of radical
yeah.
feminism.
Right.
And then it said apparently couple weeks ago, Mike Johnson casually talked about the difference between brains of men and women. That's never happened.
You're always winning an argument with the women when you start talking about their brain size.
Yeah, and he quoted as saying, "quote Men and women are different in this way. Men can compartmentalize things." That's
Yeah,
horrible.
these women just never let things go.
And then the last thing is apparently like Nancy Mace. I can't read tonight. Nancy Mace said that Johnson doesn't take women seriously, which is
Yeah.
kind of a funny thing. But also like maybe in Mike Johnson's defense, it's specific to Nancy Mace.
Yeah,
Doesn't take her
right.
seriously, but
That's a good point.
yeah,
Yeah. So just for fun, and feel free, everybody watching, put your percentage of what chance you think Mike Johnson will still be Speaker a year from now. I put it at 33%. I mean,
33%.
yeah, because he might lose a majority just from people retiring and or people dying in office. He might get kicked out by like a handful of Republicans with all the Democrats. He might get kicked out by Donald Trump, who doesn't want the House impeaching him or investigating him. So yeah, I'm not going to die on that hill, but just for fun, I'll put it at 33% chance.
Well, it's kind of like the extreme version of like Republicans' policies for the last 20 years is you make government fail, you make it not work, you grind its gears, and then you blame government for not working.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
well, you don't want anyone in there. Why don't you just make it so there's no Speaker of the House and the House can't pass anything, and therefore, the Senate can't either. But
Yeah. Bud Jones says 10% chance. So I'm a little more bullish on Mike Johnson's chances than him. Let's see. Yeah, let's talk about the economy real quick. I had this funny thought. I don't know if I got it from somewhere. I thought it up myself. It's probably not the most original idea anyway, but there's a funny thing going on about how I'm calling it like Schrodinger's inflation. It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat, where basically, the Trump administration keeps saying that there is no inflation. Everything's going great, but there is inflation, and it's Biden's fault. So it's basically Schrodinger's inflation, where inflation doesn't and does exist at the same time. It depends on who's observing it and who you want to blame for it.
yeah,
Any
and you
thoughts on
can't.
inflation?
Yeah, you. Well, I'll say his expressed inflation policy is also shut up and kids don't need toys. So I
Yeah,
guess he survived one Christmas with that policy. Let's see if he can go into the
yeah.
new year.
Uh, let's talk about Trump's Sorry Christmas. There were some really viral videos of Trump sitting with Melania and then Melania's father. And I imagine just anytime, they're talking to each other, they're probably talking in Slovenian, right? They're not probably speaking in English to Trump. But Trump leans over and like says something to Melania. And I think people were like trying to like do the lip reading, and they suggested that he might have been talking about like how good everyone's looking or something. But you can very distinctly see on Melania's lips, she accuses him of making a fool of himself. So it's just it's such
Wow.
an interesting vibe. And the best thing is Fox News was filming this. So Fox News is like doing this footage of Melania and Trump sitting together at Christmas and like having like a little like trying to get like a heartwarming little reminder that I guess they're still married. And I guess Fox is of the opinion that it's like a healthy, happy marriage. But it's interesting to think that Donald Trump is so rich and he's got this private club and these are all his members. And on Christmas Eve, he's like so lonely sitting there and Melania just like absolutely loathes him. It's an interesting character study, and it's almost like he's almost like the villain of like a child's tale, like a children's book about like not being just a horrible person, right? Um,
Well, I did enjoy the clip where the camera's like zooming in on him and he's just sitting there like talking to no one just by himself, and then he
mhm.
like notices it and then was like goes like this and then like points at the camera to like take a video of around, so it's like get this camera off me, go look at everything
Yeah,
else around. I
yeah,
thought that was
right.
pretty funny.
Uh-huh. There was also the video of Melania and Donald doing the traditional Christmas calls to children. And then, among many weird things Trump was telling the kids, he can't help himself but interact very oddly. But he starts complimenting Melania for looking good. And she, like, real quickly cuts him off and says, like, hey, is there another call? Just another funny little detail that, she's probably getting paid, like, per call. And she probably agreed to, like, some minimum number of calls, like, sit next to him.
Uh-huh.
Um, Let's see. A lot of commentary about Christmas just feeling different this year, probably because of the dark era in American politics that we're currently living through. And I just wanted to point out that it seems like there's some real cognitive dissonance as like the MAGA movement and like Trump's biggest fans. They're just there's so much cognitive dissonance that they're like the most Christian, culture warrior, Jesus loving people in America. And we're celebrating, this holiday about, Jesus was a Middle Eastern religious refugee born into poverty, hiding from an authoritarian government who Jesus grew up to preach loving foreigners and migrants like our family and demand we embody the loving, cheek-turning, forgiving virtues of the Lamb in a world of lions. And then, these exact same people are simultaneously, while celebrating all of these beautiful things about Jesus, they are cheering for an authoritarian wannabe dictator, sex trafficker who is gleefully perpetrating family breakups and separations and torture of our peaceful neighbors in domestic concentration camps and foreign gulags, and a series of policies proclaiming the righteousness of racism and discrimination. I had to read that because I wrote it all out, and I thought that was like a good long run-on sentence. But what did you make of just the vibes of Christmas this year?
The vibes. Well, I don't think it's as dark as you're saying, at least not in my personal experience. But I will say it's very unchristlike. I would say that, like when you read Mark, he says, "Love your neighbor as yourself."
Yeah.
Trump is someone who's on the record of saying, "I love revenge" and shit like that. Turn the other cheek is not
Yeah.
exactly his calling card.
Yeah. And then the last 2 days, I think he tweeted or True Socialed out like dozens of times, just insults for his enemies. All kinds of just horrid rants and stuff that is really ruining the character of our country and our discourse, probably. But it is funny too. He spent Christmas posting just dozens of times. It's deranged.
Kind of weird for
Everyone's
someone who's like a grandfather of many grandchildren, has 5 kids of his own. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. You didn't see any video of him hanging out with the grandchildren, I guess.
Well, and it's like
He
also
wasn't
think
he
of it.
wasn't hugging Eric
Yeah. Yeah, and if I
and
mean if
Don
he's that
Jr.
lonely, he's like having events, so he's sitting by himself. Like, he could be, I don't know, go visiting the troops or something. He could go be
Yeah,
helping the poor or something, but I don't,
right.
obviously that's not something he would probably do, but
Yeah. In terms of his like mental deterioration in 2026 for next year, how close do you think we are to a Caligula like event where like Caligula like nominated his horse as a senator? Like Trump's like kind of there. He hasn't picked an animal, but like the really unqualified people that he has appointed all these positions. Is it really that different? Cash Patel is the head of the FBI. Is it really that different?
well, it's funny because he kind of has like a, I don't know, he's not treated the way other politicians or certainly presidents would be treated. Like he definitely tweets some Caligula like things, like like when he's like retweeting like the pictures of him like super muscled up and doing stuff like that's strange.
Yeah.
Like everything he said about Rob Reiner, like in the 21st century, is pretty deranged. I guess it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's not I'm glad that unlike Caligula, he's not using his craziness to actually govern, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm personally getting really sick too of like the AI stuff, in terms of it being a cult. You get his like followers that are like, I see this on Twitter and stuff all the time where people will post just like obviously AI videos. I saw one today of like Donald and Melania doing like ice skating together and doing flips, like all these acrobatics on ice skating with the caption, "There's just nothing this president can't do." It's just like, part
Such
of it is
bullshit.
like, yeah, well, some of it is probably like, just Russian, like foreign bots just trying to screw with our psyches and stuff like that. But man, like, why would you even post that? Like, I don't know. That's just,
Well, beyond
I can't
posting, I
deal
would
with it.
say this is a greater indictment on the AI community, AI and tech company and
Yeah,
industry. Anyways, like putting out a product that like the sole purpose and use of the product is creating fake content that will dupe idiots. Like what?
yeah,
Like first off, what's the business model in that? Like it's a bunch of teenagers making stupid shit, and then also where's the feeling of responsibility and maybe ethics in the things that you release to the world? Like
yeah.
I don't know. I've heard other people talk about this and I agree with it 100%. Like what is the valuable use case to society, let alone business for things like Sora? Like, do you think there is
Yeah.
any?
I don't know. I guess at some point it becomes like a great tool for creators to make cool things that they want to see. But yeah,
But
I don't
shouldn't you
know.
be able to create it yourself? Like if like, for example, I could go on an iPad and use my little art, apps and cut, doctor any photo I want, but it would take me time and I'd have to want to do it enough. But like, for example, if you're a 13-year-old or a malicious, nefarious agent for another government trying to just muck shit up, like, just putting a prompt on like 10 different computers and having thousands of images or creating videos, like gigabytes of video of like politicians and Americans doing crazy bad stuff that's like not like I just don't understand. I don't know what the business model is other than I guess to sell ads somewhere along the road, but like why have it? Why put that out to the public?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And certainly there has to be some manner for us to like watermark stuff as AI
Hmm.
because it's like very depressing. I think it's like almost inhuman the idea that like everything you see on the internet now, like when you just see puppies doing cute things, like is that real or is it fake? You see all these AI videos of like people saving animals, and it's like, oh, that's AI. And so you see a sunset or pretty flowers or just anything you see online now, like just everything is, I guess you have to assume is fake until proven otherwise or something. I don't think that's
Yeah.
good for humanity.
Well, in a lot of ways, it's like the meme, right? Like of old people tell parents telling kids you can't use Wikipedia, you can't trust everything you see on the internet, and then all of them are like, "Hey, did you see this thing I saw on Facebook?" And it's like the reality is like I don't know if it's still the case, but I know like a year ago I remember reading about how like every single day like 18 of the top 20 like most shared things on Facebook originated in another country. And it's like why is that good for our
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
politic,
Why
right?
is that allowed?
90% of all the most shared shit is fake stuff from foreign adversaries in other countries. It's
yeah.
like, Trump is putting tariffs on, national security tariffs on like kitchen
Yeah.
vignettes and furniture and saying this is the most important thing to our national security. But we
Yeah.
can let Russian operatives and spies make up fake shit. And it's like the thing, it's only going to get worse. Like, they were saying that
Yeah.
like it's going to be at the point where like any female who is in any company or in politics or any like notoriety is just going to have gigabytes and gigabytes of fake AI porn made of them. And like,
Yeah.
why have that on the, like, I don't
Right.
know. And now, like, OpenAI is like in the news a lot because they're basically like, yeah, we're not making enough money, so we better, unleash the pornography on ChatGPT because
Yeah.
otherwise we're like really in over our heads. Like,
Yeah. It's
again,
dystopian.
like I guess it's a business model, but like, where is the responsibility and judgment in how you
Yeah.
operate
Right.
a company
Yeah.
in this country? But
And I love how like this is something that Trump's getting into because obviously he just money talks with him. But the idea that like he's trying to make it so no state can on their own have any regulations or legislation concerning AI whatsoever,
yeah,
which is just the Constitution is very clear that states can't like supersede national laws. But this idea that states can't have any laws of their own in this area, that the national government hasn't no regulations itself, is kind of absurd just constitutionally. And then to protest that, of course, it was going really viral. A bunch of people put out AI videos and pictures of Trump using like a walker,
yeah,
obviously making a point. And,
uh-huh.
it's just, what do you do with that? It's like, I forget how many, it was like many years out though, that you're not allowed to regulate in any way. I don't know. It's very dystopian. On the other hand, it's nice that I think there's a big push now to follow Australia in terms of like banning social media for kids under 16. Maybe that's like a glimmer of hope that I guess there's some, responsible people doing some things to help this situation. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Any other thoughts on AI?
No, other than it's still like a
Yeah.
ticking time bomb of a bubble ready to pop.
Yeah.
I
And
like,
well, just imagine like this upcoming election, like the amount of fake clips and quotes that we're going to be seeing from all the candidates that are just,
yeah,
it's like the idea. I think it was Mark Twain that said that, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. Like what happens when just billions of people are seeing this AI stuff? I don't know.
yeah. Well, and it's stupid too because like the rationale for all this stuff is like business and it's propping up the economy, which I don't think is worth it. But then also like, no, like I think looking at it like for example, if you had someone collecting Beanie Babies and saying it's going to come back, and it's like I'm gonna put $1 trillion in Beanie Babies, you'll all see. It's like maybe you're making like $14 a month selling some Beanie Babies here and there, but then if you think of like that level of crazy, all the tech people, especially at OpenAI, are literally saying that. They're saying we're going to spend $1 trillion based on our our modest $14 billion of profit, and we're going to spend all of the capital left over in this economy right now on data centers, and just hope that somehow magically that general AI will magically come about, and we will get to own it and control it. And then you have people in OpenAI saying, "Yeah, there's no way we're going to make general AI," and we're just like burning money. So I don't know. It's funny. It's like to me, it's the same thing as like people saying any other like obvious bubble, and they're saying, "No, believe us, we're so smart." And then I don't know, people around the
Yeah.
country throwing their
Yeah.
money at it because it's like the
Yeah.
last big bet. I don't know.
Right. I'm reminded of the Arrested Development line of Tobias's line about how he's talking about how people go into like or I forget what it is, but it was like people always make the mistake. They always think it won't happen to them, but maybe this time.
Yeah,
It's just like that.
yeah, but maybe it could help us or whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's just
Let's move
funny.
on to Epstein. There's a lot of crazy stuff on the Epstein files coming out. Let's just for the scoreboard, everything was supposed to be released like a week ago, and so they're just trickling out. And now the DOJ just announced that it'll take even longer because they just found 1 million new documents. And this is interesting because it's got to be perjury, right? Like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel under oath were just telling Congress that there's no more incriminating documents. Kash Patel said there was no evidence Epstein was trafficking girls to other people. Pam Bondi, of course, said that the Epstein files are on her desk, and then she said there were no Epstein files. So hopefully there's some I guess they're looking to impeach them. Even like Thomas Massey and some Democrats are looking into investigating them and impeaching them. Hopefully, there's like prosecution for that because I mean that's just kind of straight up lying. But do you think the dam's kind of breaking? Like Lake Michigan was trending yesterday and today. Like that allegation that in the files that allegedly, who knows if this is true or not, but Trump was on a boat where they like killed a baby that was like one of the girls that he slept with and like threw the baby into the lake. So that's really fucked up. There was
Why'd
also
they
an
have
interest.
her? If they were gonna do that, why'd they have her like have the baby come to term? That's kind of odd.
I don't know. There was an interesting interview with a former Trump beauty pageant coach, and he said that the smoking gun will be in the Miss USA and Miss Teen USA pageants. And then he said he didn't want to go on record and talk about all this stuff, although he was on public television or live television when he said that stuff. He doesn't want to be the one to talk about it though, because he said these people are dangerous. And like obviously Trump was like best friends with these people, like that Wexler guy, the Casablancas guy, and Epstein, as they're running all these like kind of semi-fake, I guess, modeling agencies where they're just getting all these girls. And then Epstein, of course, had all the it appears to have all the girls' passports at his house and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you make of all the just
I guess we'll find
insanity?
out if there's a million documents they're going to release. It's a
Yeah.
big trove for people to go through. I do think it's funny how like they were doing things like failing to properly redact information, and they were also
Yeah.
like they made it so you couldn't search Trump, but you could search for Trump and a space bar, which is kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Right.
So it's like it's obviously a cover up of something, right?
Yeah.
How bad it is, we don't know, but like I mean, most of their actions are incomprehensible, and especially it's funny to me because like thinking of people like Steve Bannon who've been railing about this for years, and he's like in the fucking document. He was there
Yeah.
too.
And
Like,
hanging
what
out
the
with
fuck were you
Epstein all
doing,
the
man?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's like ludicrous too, and it's like I don't know. All these people talking shit. Like I don't know. It's the people so adamant that they're against Democrats and these conspiracies of people like I don't know, taking young girls and like being pedophiles, and like everybody around Trump and his friends and stuff are that way. So it's so weird. It's like admitting to the crime but trying to be the most ardent defender against something that you do. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it is weird too because there's so many weird Trump like Epstein connections with the people he's put into his administration. So like
Yeah,
Bill
it's like
Barr's like dad.
incomprehensible.
Yeah, like Bill Barr's dad was the one who got, I think, Epstein like the teaching job and like some of the connections with, I guess, some of the money that he made. Obviously, Alex Acosta was involved with a sweetheart deal, who became the Secretary of Labor. Pam Bondi, the current, Attorney General now in the second term, was Attorney General of Florida in like 2011 or around there for many of the years that Epstein's sex trafficking ring was going on. Now, let me throw an idea for you. I have this idea. I'm not willing to die on this hill, but I'm wondering if maybe Trump was even more of a ringleader than Epstein in all of this. And like, they were best friends forever. They had all these weird pageants and modeling stuff and, weird stuff and parties going on with prostitutes together. But like Trump is way bigger than Epstein, right? Like Trump has had giant real estate connections for years with a lot of the countries that are involved in like sex trafficking, right? Like Trump had the massive Trump Tower that was accused of having like this massive gambling like scheme. All these allegations of money laundering going on. You had all these foreign oligarchs control like all these properties within Trump Tower and whole floors. Trump, other than like, Epstein didn't have political aspirations like apparently like Trump has had, right? Like Trump wanted to be George H.W. Bush's vice president in 1988. Trump ran for president in 2000 under the Reform Party for several months before he thought he wouldn't win. And then Pat Buchanan jumped in and got the nomination instead. And on top of that, like Trump with his, political aspirations, the blackmail over all of these political figures, and of course, maybe the connections, there's all those allegations that maybe Epstein was working with like Mossad or other foreign governments like intelligence agencies. I don't know. Maybe Trump was bigger than Epstein, and is all of this is just setting up Epstein to take the fall and hopefully get away with everything and just pin it all on Epstein. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Again, I'm not like willing to die on the hill, but I don't know. I would
No, it's
imagine. I would imagine Trump is lucky that so much of the investigations are focused just on Epstein when, they were best friends for so long and probably doing a lot of shady stuff together. That Trump's probably lucky that like so much of the investigations were focused solely on Epstein, as if he was the only sex trafficker in America,
yeah. No, it is pretty wild. That's the idea that Trump didn't have anything to do with any of that stuff is probably not true. I mean, I guess we'll find out. There was like one report I saw that the one of the FBI files or whatever from one of the investigations talked about how like one of the girls said that like she met like Trump's like second wife or whatever, Marla Maples. And
Oh
Marla
yeah.
Maples said like don't go near my husband or something
Don't
like that's
bring
pretty.
don't bring your 14-year-old daughter anywhere near my husband or any of his
Yeah,
friends. Yeah.
yeah, that's incredibly fucked up, and that seems
Yeah.
that seems like a little smoke to me.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
there's smoke, there's probably fire, right? So I
Yeah.
guess we'll find out. I mean, it it would be hard to imagine that they've tried and gone to this great lengths to hide all this stuff and cover up and say, oh, Trump tried to get all of the MAGA influencers to stop talking about it, and some of them did. And like, it's hard to imagine that all that isn't in the pursuit of just shutting this down because whatever's going to come out is probably horrible.
Yeah, and Trump just tweeted out or truthed out like today or yesterday. He mentioned that we need to stop, we need to stop the Epstein hoax. Except let's release the stuff about Democrats to embarrass them. But other than that, it's like wasting our time, and it's getting in the way of the Department of Justice's other goals, which I guess for Trump are like going after his personal enemies and being his personal lawyers.
Well, this is funny.
Um,
So I have
yeah.
a tweet, or I guess Truth Social or whatever, on my screen right here. It says from Donald J. Trump. Now a million more pages on Epstein are found. DOJ is being forced to spend all of its time on this Democrat-inspired hoax. The Dems are the ones who worked with Epstein, not Republicans. It's like Trump, you were self-admittedly best friends with him for 10
Yeah,
years. And
right.
it's like, please release all of their names, embarrass them, and get back to helping our country. Okay, so he's back to we will release it, but we will take all the Republican names out and keep all
Yeah.
the Democrat
Yeah.
names. So I mean, it's just dumb.
Yeah. Do you think Matt Gaetz, who was, of course, Trump's first pick for attorney general instead of Pam Bondi, do you think he's a little upset or having a little FOMO, watching Pam Bondi kind of fumble all the rollout of the Epstein stuff and all the cover up? Do you think he's like sitting around, telling people, Coach should have put me in? like
I
I could
think
have, I could
maybe
have gotten away with this. And
would have
then,
been stupid to want that job right now. Like, would you want Pam
yeah.
Bondi? Would you? Hey, you're going to go out and defend Trump
Yeah,
every single
you're gonna go
day?
risk prison for decades to defend Donald Trump from just
Yeah.
like ubiquitous allegations of sexual wrongdoing. Do you think Matt Gaetz would have been better or worse than Pam Bondi as Attorney General, specifically in terms of like covering up the Epstein files?
And that's a good theoretical question, I guess.
Because
Would they be worse or
on
better?
one hand, he's involved with sex trafficking himself, with like that whole little Florida ring he had with down when he with his friends there. They also got in trouble for some of the sex with underage girls. But on the other hand, Matt Gaetz is not popular, and a lot of other Republicans hated him because he's kind of an asshole. So I think maybe Pam Bondi is able to get away with more because she's given the benefit of the doubt more than maybe Matt Gaetz would be, because obviously Democrats don't like him, and then even most Republicans probably don't like Matt Gaetz.
Well, yeah, and kind of begs the question to me, like, how much free reign does like the head of the Department of Justice really have right now, right? Like, they're obviously being subsumed with certain things that they don't want to be doing. That's to
Yeah,
say the least. But like, for example, like the ability to their efforts to go after like James Comey and Letitia James, like, do I think like some of the fuck ups that the DOJ has done, like, would Matt Gaetz have been better about that? Like, I don't know. Like, would he have been faster in the draw and not tried to like put in the indictments like the day of the expiration or the day before the expiration of the charges? But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to imagine. Like I
yeah,
imagine, like to some extent, the leader of the Department of Justice has a lot of branches and directorates and departments or whatever they call them underneath, and I imagine a lot of them have their own heads. A lot of them have been there for decades, right? Like
yeah,
I imagine a lot of the people at the top of the Department of Justice, like you know, I don't know how much like someone like Pam Bondi would be personally manipulating or stepping in or micromanaging some of these bigger directorates, and probably not nearly as much as like at the lower branches and stuff, and what level of top cover the Department of Justice probably naturally has institutionally from the like direct personal involvement of like the elected, not elected, but the political appointed people at the top. So I don't know.
yeah. No, that's very true. There's so many people going on, and there's so many sub departments that who knows what they're doing. There's some allegations that maybe just some of the incompetently redacted files are just intentionally doing that, so that people in the DOJ are letting some facts and embarrassing things get out.
Well,
Hopefully,
there's
they
things
keep
like
that up if they are.
Yeah, there's also stories of like some people have been fired because someone came to them and said, "Hey, do this," and they said no. So like,
Yeah,
if you would replace Pam Bondi with the other guy, like, and he said, "Hey, you have to do this," that guy would probably still say no, or probably be more willing to say no
yeah,
to
right.
someone who's not Pam Bondi. I don't know, but
Yeah, there's also that weird thing. Did you see that Larry Nassar letter that apparently
I
right
did
before
not.
his death, he sent this letter to Larry Nassar saying something to the effect of like acknowledging that Trump is in on it and that he would grab girls by the snatch. Was his words, and then
Disgusting.
like while they were like in the mess hall getting grub equivalent versus Trump like just taking any girl he wanted. So that's very weird. But there's a lot of weirdness with the timing of the letter, and so I just wanted to call out liberals for urging restraint on this. When that was going around, everyone was kind of saying like, "Hey, this might not be real." Apparently, there was like a handwriting like analysis that wasn't released about this letter to see if it was really Epstein's handwriting. But I wanted to shout that out that liberals, of course, in the mainstream media and mainstream bloggers were really urging restraint on just not, running with that. Whereas everything with Republicans, they kind of run a mile with every salacious allegation and they run a mile before they do any fact checking at all. And then it usually blows up in their face.
Yeah, as opposed to
Um,
Candace Owens, who, something bad
yeah,
happens and they go, the
right.
Macrones did this
Yeah,
because she's a man.
and Israel. It
Yeah.
was the Macrons in Israel for everything. Yeah. Now, where do you think QAnon is in all of this? Now that we really have the sex trafficking ring being blown up, you would think QAnon would be somewhere visible, or maybe sending out some of his Q drops to figure out what's going on, and finally get to blame the people involved.
Is QAnon still a thing? I don't know. Someone check on them.
Yeah,
Have we heard
I
from
don't know.
them?
Should there
Well,
be
and
a
also
liberal
like,
QAnon? Should there be like, I thought about this. It's like one of the many ideas that I could do that might be a good idea, but I don't think I want to spend my time, having some QAnon alias. But like, should I start a Twitter and just nonstop just troll? I don't know. I got enough going on with the halfway post and
well, it begs
cafe,
the
but
question too of like, what's the asymmetry between the like average crazy Democrat, and the average crazy Republican? Like QAnon caught like
yeah,
wildfire, and a
yeah.
lot of like actual normie like establishment Republicans would like wink, wink, nod, nod towards it. But like, if you did that, after 6 months would you still have like 18 followers? Like
Yeah,
no
because it just goes
traction.
nowhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Any other thoughts on Epstein or anything before we move on?
no, no thoughts,
Okay.
no further
For the
thoughts.
record, you're not a fan
Yeah,
of Epstein.
yeah,
You do
I am
not endorse.
pro the million documents coming out.
Yeah, right. All right. I wanted to look forward to the 2028 GOP primary because let's assume that Trump doesn't try to run and Republicans don't let him. And maybe we could even assume that Trump strokes out and JD Vance becomes president for like the last 2 years or something. But in terms of I just want to get your first reactions to the likely candidates. What do you think of JD Vance as kind of taking the white nationalist and racist wing of the party?
That's
How
yeah.
would you see JD Vance? Obviously, is probably
If
the
we're gonna
front
dole
runner,
out the
right?
teams,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. What do I think? I think he's got it. He's willing to say anything. Like the amount of people who say, "Oh yeah, JD Vance like made a conscious political decision to be the way he is." He's not like that. So
yeah,
I
mhm.
think it's funny that he's trying to thread a needle. I saw like an interesting comparison video of like even people like Charlie Kirk calling people out and saying like you can't say that, or you shouldn't be talking about that, or you're not included in our movement type thing. And then JD Vance is like, "I'll take you." Like
Yeah,
you.
right.
So
He's
yeah.
very concerned that the racists feel welcome in the Republican Party and they don't shun those votes.
Yeah, and it's like I guess he has an argument that like the Republican Party is a big tent party, just like the Democratic Party. So, but I don't know. I don't think that means you should invite the Ku Klux Klan and like actual racists and stuff.
Yeah,
Like even in the '60s, like the craziest Republicans and stuff were like, nope, you're not in our party. We disown you and that kind of thing. So,
yeah,
I mean, Trump kind of had that anxiety, I guess you could say, of losing potential voters too in 2016 and going into 2020. So, he
yeah,
famously would not. Uh, call out specific white nationalists and pretty bad, evil pro-Nazi people.
yeah.
Um,
And he
Yep.
had that dinner with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West while Kanye was
Yeah.
hardcore anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be a problem for JD Vance with his kind of like biggest supporters in that he's married to an Indian daughter of immigrants and has mixed children? You know, he's got that whole kind of
Yeah.
gimmick of America is a heritage country for white people who came from people who fought in the Civil War. Um, do you think like how do you make sense of that? How do you square that
I mean, it's
circle?
arbitrary. You're just going to say in
Yeah,
1867, if you were before, you're a real American, and if you're after, like, fuck you, you're probably from Poland or Greece or something. We don't want you. Like, that's
right.
so arbitrary and stupid. Like, obviously, there's like millions of immigrants in this country, and like who've been here since like came in the 60s, came after our incredibly racist immigration policies were repealed in the 60s. Like, I think I saw a stat. There's like 50 million people in America who were not born here or something, or are the children of like first generation or second
Hmm.
generation immigrants. So like, whatever that blood and soil like dateline that they established is completely arbitrary and stupid. So,
Yeah. What do you make of Ted Cruz taking the kind of normie, old school, conservative Republican wing of the party?
hmm,
Do
yeah,
you
I don't
think
know.
people?
It's
Do you think
he kind
after
of had
Trump?
a
Go ahead.
he kind of had a lock on like some of the white like evangelical Christian vote in 2016, but like Trump's got
Hmm.
that in the bag now. So I don't know what that's going to be like. And it's hard to imagine because you think like, oh, like in the Republican Party, you'd think, oh, this group cares about this, or they care about people like this, like, or they care about things like virtue or character, right? That was like the big complaint about Bill Clinton. If he cheated on his wife, you know, he's going to cheat on America and lie about it. And it's like, well, they
Yeah,
don't care about that anymore. So you say, oh, what do you think of Ted Cruz? And it's like, well, I don't know if the traditional voting bloc that you would think of when you think of him will give a shit because they've put up a lot of things you
yeah,
probably
right.
wouldn't think they would support with Trump.
Yeah. Do you think after Trump, people will forget like the adage that everybody hates Ted Cruz? Yeah. Do you think he'll be less of kind of his smarmy normal self
I mean,
running in
like he'll start
2028?
talking, and I think people will be reminded pretty quickly, like he's
Yeah.
still Ted Cruz, right? Like has his podcasting really softened the edges of some of this stuff? Like he's
Yeah,
still,
right.
yeah, I don't know.
What do you think about Mike Pence, who might compete with Ted Cruz for that kind of like evangelical, more Christian, like religious segment of the party?
Well, that'd be fascinating, right? Like, did neither Ted Cruz or Mike Pence get any of those white evangelical voters? Because once you tasted Trump, you don't go back, or something like that.
Yeah. Now, do you think Mike Pence will be hampered by people coming to his events to chant "Hang Mike Pence"
Yeah,
like every event?
like, yeah. There's definitely no like, I don't know. It's the last 4 years. I don't think the electorate that wants Mike Pence has grown any bit, and it wasn't very
Yeah,
high 4 years ago.
yeah, right. That's a good point. What do you make of Rand Paul taking the kind of libertarian wing of the party?
That's the kind of job. It's like someone's got to do it. So thanks, Rand Paul. Like,
Yeah,
shut them
right.
up. Someone's got to be that libertarian voice that no one gives a shit about, except like a couple thousands of like Republican conservatives in college. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it is interesting to think in like I think what was it like 2014 or something like that. He was kind of the front runner of the Republican Party, and he was kind of the
For a minute.
favorite for a hot minute or maybe several months. But he's been critiquing a lot about the Trump administration. Obviously, like the bombings of people indiscriminately, the wars that Trump is threatening to get us into, the tariffs certainly. I think that's a pretty compelling argument of kind of old school conservatism. He might take it a little too far, being a little too libertarian for like the regular Overton window. How do you think? I guess going back to Vance real quick, how do you think he'll handle kind of having to defend everything Trump did these years because he was vice president? Do you think he'll be able to kind of make himself different than Trump? Kind of slightly disown some of the unpopular stuff that like 3 years from now are going to be super unpopular. How do you think he'll handle that?
I don't know. I think it will depend completely on how coherent Trump still is. Like
Yeah,
Trump watches TV all day. He's gonna watch a Republican primary in 2027 or 20, I guess, yeah,
and tweet
2028. Yeah,
tweet
January
out
20.
crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, and if you say I think Trump was wrong about this, he's gonna say you're low energy. I hate you. You're the dumbest person I've
Yeah,
ever met. I never even know. You don't even
yeah,
know
yeah,
MAGA. Like,
yeah. That's interesting. And then maybe a dark horse candidate, Don Jr., running to keep the Trump dynasty going.
I mean, yeah,
Do you think he'll go
I hope
anywhere?
not. That'd be horrible. Like, yeah, I don't know who likes him. Like, he doesn't seem. he's not a very personable person. He seems really awkward and weird on TV. Like he wrote that book, but then like didn't like foundations and conservative groups buy like thousands and thousands of copies of it, so it would be
Yeah.
on the New York Times bestseller. Like I didn't hear about it having any legitimate sales, and like who at some point like I don't know. There's no way I don't know. This is one of the things I think Trump is so like singularly unique in politics and I guess charismatic for some people. And like I don't know how any other person is going to replicate that. So I think they're just going to be fighting for his endorsement. And he probably won't give it. So that'll be interesting. So if everyone is
Yeah.
still fighting for his endorsement and he's not going to give it, well, everyone's going to go up until the voting days of every primary in every state having probably never differentiated themselves from Trump or presumably JD Vance at that point. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like if no one's going to badmouth the previous administration, the voters still love Trump and have like a 95+% like support for him, especially in the primary electorate. Like, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a personality contest if no one can differentiate themselves. And a lot of those people don't have very good personalities.
Yeah, right. No, that's a good point. I don't know though. I don't know if I agree though about that. It'll be like there's still so much support for Trump. I think his support's waning. Like you don't really see Trump flags and Trump hats out anymore. The chaos is just so there's so many unforced errors just going on constantly. Trump is just making things so much worse for people. He's not responding to economic pain and uncertainty.
But
Like
my
the
rebuttal is
Epstein stuff.
we're talking about Republican primaries and like does the RNC exist as an independent branch of anything anymore? It's like completely subsumed by MAGA and Trump, right?
Do
Like
you
I would
think at the debates they'll have a giant like mouse-sized statue or like portrait of Trump behind
yeah,
them as they're all on the debate stage?
yeah. No, I mean do you know who's running the RNC right now? I don't.
I don't know. It's
And granted, like to be fair, like
someone
we're
probably related to Trump
yeah,
by
we're
birth or
Laura
marriage.
Trump. We're 1 year into a presidential administration, so anyone who gives a fuck about either the DNC or RNC is probably too plugged in and needs to take a
Yeah.
break. So, like, whatever. But like that being said, like, I don't see what role the RNC is going to step out. The RNC is going to be like, uh, you know, they're not going to step. They're not. I lost my train of thought. It's so, it's so hard to imagine what the RNC is going to be doing in 3 years. Yeah. I kind of
Yeah.
trailed off there, but
Yeah, no worries. I wanted to throw out just I want to get your opinion on this. I had this series of jokes that I'm still working on that I think is funny, but the premise is basically I think up the wildest, most insane thing for the Epstein files to allegedly say, followed up by dot dot dot, but we'll never know for sure until the Epstein files are released. So some of the ones I've had so far are the redacted Epstein files reportedly include a video of Trump audibly farting, followed by Epstein telling him, "Did you just shit yourself on my plane again? The girls make us pay triple when you're around because of this. Dot dot dot. But we'll never know for sure until the files are released." What do you think of that premise? Because like you
no,
can't
it's good.
sue me, right? Because if you're never going to release the Epstein files unredacted, right? You can't ever prove I'm wrong. Right? I
That's
think it's a
true.
good comedic premise. Yeah. I had another
Yeah.
one. The Epstein files reportedly claim Trump's penis caught on fire in a freak hairspray can explosion incident, and that's why the rumor his penis is deformed persists. Dot dot dot. But we'll never know for sure until the Epstein files are released. I like that. I don't know. I just thought
Yeah,
that was
no, that's
funny.
funny. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
gold mine because you can put anything in there at all until it's
Yeah.
released. We'll never know.
And then I had this tweet as a joke, and I just wanted to get your thought on it. But I say a new poll found that 99% of Americans want the DOJ to immediately offer one of Epstein and Trump's co-conspirators an immunity deal to like basically admit everything, throw everyone else under the bus, reveal everything. Would you accept that deal, letting like one of the co-conspirators, walk away free and face a lifetime of like social exile or something like that, but to just make sure all of the people go down? Would you take that deal?
I
I
mean,
got
yeah,
some like criticism, not criticism, but people disagreeing with it, like in the comments. I don't know. I take that deal. I'd rather have them like 9 out of 10 go to prison than you know zero.
well, and it's very different than like the classic example of like, would you rather let one person or like 100 people go free, but one innocent person go to jail or whatever?
Mm,
And then, it's the same thing. Would you like rather like give one person clemency or leniency, but like lock up everyone else who was part of the criminal conspiracy to basically rape people? Like that's fucked up.
yeah,
I mean, I would take that bet. I would take that deal.
yeah. Okay.
Well, I had a funny
Moving
thought for
on.
you. This was
Yeah,
something I
yeah.
was thinking about. like, what are ways like Democrats could fuck with Republicans in the next year since they barely have control of the House? They can't pass anything. They have no agenda. Trump's not exactly stepping in and leaning forward on any important substantive issue of our time. But I just thought like kind of to your point about thinking about Christmas, the meaning of Jesus Christ and his message and how it's not received or enacted by people who claim to love Jesus today. I just thought it'd be funny, like Republicans got rid of USAID, right? Because they don't care about helping poor people around the
Hmm.
world, let alone feeding them or giving medicine and food to children. But like could Democrats propose like a bill with like something like the Donald J. Trump and Jesus Christ food aid for the poor bill and just like put that in committee and be like, let's vote on it. And it's like
Yeah,
literally just USAID, but they just called it that. Like, but then it's like, what else could Democrats be doing? Like, I guess we could look on like the us.house.gov and Senate like websites and seeing what's being proposed. Like, I'm sure there are bills like in committees being proposed, but like, if you're not going to do anything, like, why not make the most of it? Like, what do you
just
think of that?
nonstop messaging bills. No, yeah, I'm in support of that. Yeah, just basically have a bunch of liberal policies and ideas, just put Trump's name on it, and then have Republicans vote against it. That'd be kind of interesting.
Well, it's funny too, because like like can Democrats not get one Republican to be like, "Hey, it'll be funny if you put this," like, and then you say, "Oh, it's bipartisan," you know what I mean,
Yeah,
or it's like
right.
Republican like sponsored or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Um, like what else? I have a funny one, and this is like close to me because like just like environmental policy and giving a shit about the environment is something I care about, and I'm frankly surprised more people don't care at all.
Yeah,
But like Trump apparently put a stop to like all ongoing offshore wind power projects because like technically the government has control of like most of the coastline. Like states don't really control it. Like a lot of the economic exclusion zone is obviously like a federal government thing,
right.
and they have a lot of power and it makes sense. There's a lot of regulatory reasons why you'd want to manage like what people put in the ocean and stuff. But
Yeah,
so they just stopped all offshore wind power projects. And I just thought like where are all like we're a federalist society, we're a republic, not a democracy. Like we have checks and balances. People, where are the libertarians saying like what right does a federal government have to step in and tell a state like Rhode Island and Connecticut like fuck you, you can't have clean energy. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, right.
what's the point of that? And plus like they're building all these data centers, so we need more energy. So it's part of the solution of more energy anyway. I just think between that, what was the other thing I was going to say? Maybe we'll get to it in a little bit, but yeah, it's just like I'm so surprised. Like, where are all the people who care about any of that stuff? Where's the Heritage Foundation? Where's all those conservative groups who complain that Obama was a tyrant because he wanted the federal government to do anything? It's so
Yeah.
hypocritical.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I guess their priorities is kind of Project 2025, which was a lot of kind of cultural stuff, really. And
Hmm.
obviously they have like the kind of Unitarian leader idea where they just want more authority vested in the president. But a lot of their stuff, a lot, and especially a lot of the people behind it, are very kind of like theocratically minded. And it kind of comes down to the thing that they hate Sharia law, but they kind of want the exact same laws, just called like Christian law, essentially, and like force that upon everybody. So I don't know, their priorities are just all kind of jumbled up, but it certainly is hypocritical that all of these people that are forever screaming, one, against the federal government, and two, like the states' rights kind of thing. So yeah, you're right, they just are nowhere to be found. But it's the same thing about like the don't tread on me flag people that aren't
Yeah,
doing anything with like the arrests of U.S. citizens on the streets just based on their skin color. Like we're all the Second Amendment people, as Trump is sending the National Guards to like go literally occupy our streets and cities. So nothing makes sense. Everything's scrambled up.
yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Um, one of the
What do you
things
make
I'd
of?
laugh is, did you
Oh
see
yeah, go
the
ahead.
did you see those plaques that Trump has been making? So it's like
Yeah,
we talk about how the Republicans have
at
no
the White House.
agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. The flags of the
So
White House.
yeah, so Republicans have no plan. They're not coming up with a plan. They don't even have concepts of a plan, like Trump said last year or whatever. But like just the fact that like Trump is spending his time literally just like nailing pieces of gold around the White House and
Yeah.
then building the plan. And I just love like the quote from Carolyn Levitt when being asked about these plaques that they're putting up with like facts about previous presidents. And Carolyn Levitt said that Trump, as a student of history, has written most of them. And it's like
Yeah.
Trump hasn't
Do you
Trump
think Trump has any thoughts on Calvin Coolidge or Benjamin Harrison?
Well,
Like,
yeah, that'd be fascinating. Trump famously doesn't read about anything. And what was that joke that like you said the other night that Trump has
yeah,
written more books than
I
he's
think he's
read?
ghostwritten more books than he's read. Yeah, it
Yeah,
would be funny. It's like to ask Trump, like, name one president from the 1800s other than Jefferson and Lincoln. Like, how many
yeah,
presidents do you think you could name? Any?
that'd be a good question. Be like, oh,
Yeah,
a lot of people are. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting presidents people don't know in his
yeah.
Trumpian fashion.
I think presidential candidates should have to take like a civics test, like a sixth grade level civics test or something, like publicly, and that should just be part of our selection process of like how did they do on a civics test? Worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Well, what I was
ahead.
gonna say is like maybe not. It doesn't have to be public. Like it's like a when you're 15 and getting your driver's like permit, and you have to take a little test. It's like maybe candidates can just quietly before they announce go to the DMV, take the test, and then they can only announce if they've like passed. They don't have to
Yeah,
tell their scores or whatever. It's just like yeah, you know a bare minimum about how the government actually functions and works.
yeah. What do you make of Barry Weiss and her kind of control over CBS with the whole kerfluffle about that 60 Minutes segment, kind of detailing some really crazy torture and, like all things with this administration, rape allegations of prisoners at CCOT? And of course, like, do you think this is kind of like we're really getting close to kind of Viktor Orbanist style government censorship, especially now that so many other companies, including maybe even CNN, are like being bought up by these kind of like conservative oligarchs that are sucking up to Trump and doing whatever he wants because they're all obscenely rich, but they still want more money, and they have all these like mergers and stuff like that could theoretically be stonewalled by Trump and his staffers.
Well, it's like another thing that's like really frustrating and annoying, just like all these companies that have tons of money and they're like, while they're making their products worse and like dumbing it down
Yeah,
and charging people more, they're also like going out of their way to put themselves in positions where they have to bend over backwards to bad people and bad things. And like, if you're gonna run like some kind of journalistic enterprise, like where is your sense of responsibility to the public for what you're doing? Like the people running this ought to have similar incentives to journalists who are like trained on things like ethics and stuff and have,
yeah,
being a little removed from the source you're directly reporting on and stuff like that. Um, I think it's weird that like all these companies, like they're just buying up everything and then they're obviously becoming beholden to Trump anyway. And then the other thing is, and Scott Galloway talks about this a lot, which I like. He says that like, how many hundreds of millions of dollars do you have to have before you like grow the spine and ball sack to tell someone, no, I'm not fucking doing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
someone like Tim Cook, like if you're gonna like bend over backwards and like just take it from Trump, like just quit your job. You're a millionaire. Like why do you need to keep running Apple? Like I get the idea that like all these people are, the fiduciary interests of their shareholders and the companies and the employees, but like fucking just walk away. Like why do you have to give the president of the United States a gold bar? Like just saying it out
yeah,
loud is so like obscene and horrible to think that that even happens. And like, it makes sense why a foreign country would like break the emoluments clause and give bribes because it's like another country they can't vote here, they have no power. Is
yeah,
the
right.
legal justice system that's going to help, and it's like okay, well if the one thing that's going to ruin my economy the one thing standing between ruining my like domestic economy for my millions of people is giving the
Yeah,
president a gold bar. Fuck it, I'll do it. I'll walk
yeah,
in there,
right.
give him a gold
Yeah.
bar, say he's the best president in American history. But like, why is a CEO, a millionaire CEO of a company, bending over backwards to do the same thing? It makes no sense to me. Also,
Well,
I mean,
it's the idea that like why have like at what point do you have fuck you money, and like why have fuck you money if you never say fuck you to anybody?
yeah, and the other thing is, it's like this is a clear case of like a tragedy of multiple people interacting alone. But it's like these are all CEOs; they know each other. They go to
Yeah,
conventions and
right.
not conventions, but like meetings and stuff. And like, why don't they all text each other like, "Yeah, I'm not giving Trump a fucking gold bar, and neither should you." And it's like, I don't. Well, okay, like they should communicate and coordinate on that. Like once you have
Yeah,
one person doing it, like, and then I don't know. The other thing is just like this is a weird time. So any business deal with anyone who's like remotely outspoken against Trump is obviously not going to have their business deals go through. So I mean, I guess as we talk about this more, I understand the tenuous position a lot of these people and companies feel. But at the same time, if I had $100 million, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be working, let alone like
Yeah.
sucking up to a president.
Especially selling your soul. But it comes down to the thing like, where are all the free trade people that have been talking about free trade and the market knows best and the government should be so small you can, what is it? You be able to drown it in a bathtub. I think it's
Yeah.
what a lot of people say. But now we're doing these deals where, like, the government owns like 10% of Intel. We're getting cuts of all these NVIDIA chips we're giving to China. Like, it's just literally ludicrous. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to just our like insanely capitalistic culture. We're probably, with in terms of like the vested interests of the company, like these CEOs can probably be sued for not doing what's best for the company, which is just going along with any fascist dictate by the wannabe dictator, right? Because, like everything is about, protecting the profits of shareholders. So anything that you do
But
that,
where's the power? Like, okay, so yeah, I'm not okay. Imagine you're the CEO of Apple, and you're like, I'm not going to give Trump a gold bar, and be like, fuck you, shareholders, fucking take me to court, sue me,
yeah,
and
I
say
mean,
that I'm not
I would
doing.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'd be like, I want you to go to court and declare in a court of law that I'm not doing the fiduciary interest by
By,
not bribing
by
the
bribing
president of the
yeah,
United.
right.
Yeah, like fuck
Yeah.
that. Like, I don't know. I have very strong opinions
Yeah.
in this. The lack of spine and I don't know, feeling of responsibility for anything except your. I mean, that's like the same thing of members of Congress saying like, I didn't see the tweet. I don't know what Trump's talking about. I didn't see, and it's like you have
Yeah.
one fucking job. Like, just do it or quit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Fortunately, a lot of them are wanting to quit now, so I guess we'll
Yeah.
get our
Right.
wish. We'll see. Like, but yeah,
Well, it is fucked up too with the media because the media does have kind of like a sacred responsibility as the fourth estate. And of course, like in a democracy, the people need, real news to be able to make informed democratic decisions. But especially with CBS, like the whole thing with Barry Weiss is just really annoying. And a lot of people were talking about how, she's like basically laundering fascism into CBS and this kind of like state censorship. And it's just interesting coming from Barry Weiss, who is a woman, a lesbian, and Jewish, that she's laundering fascism for a political movement that largely hates women, hates gay people, and, kind of blames the Jews for a lot of stuff, right? So,
yeah,
it's like she's a very convenient kind of tool for these people, but, she's going to be thrown overboard at the first second she's no longer convenient, right? Like, just very short term thinking, I feel like.
yeah. I don't know. I wonder if it's like a narcissism that no matter what the job is being offered to you, you think you would be better at it and you should take it. And then like responsibility or ethics don't matter to you or apply to you. And it's like, if there are a lot of jobs I wouldn't take, right? And that goes to a lot of the people who get like politically appointed to jobs. Like, okay, you've never been in the military, you've never like served, no one in your family has served, like you know nothing about the military or defense policy, and it's like you're gonna go be secretary of whatever, and it's like, should you take that job? Like, what like? Do you think there's a
Yeah.
level of narcissism in taking a job like that?
Oh,
Like,
of
I
course.
get,
Like Pete
yeah,
Hegseth taking the Secretary of Defense, despite being a weekend Fox host. Like, what experience does he have leading like massive, massive, gargantuan numbers of employees and giant bureaucracies that span the entire planet and are probably like like just in terms of like resources needed and logistics, just literally the most complicated organization in the history of human civilization. And he's coming from a cushiony job where he like interviews people and just talks,
on
on
a
a
couch.
panel. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Well, one thing I always wondered about, and I never understand, like, I don't I don't know. Maybe, I'm just going to spitball what I've thought about before, but like the amount of people who like take a job or like administrations that come in, like I don't understand why there's not more thought to like the people who are going to be like maybe the people you want to run it should be deputies first, and then they take it after a
Yeah,
year. Like okay, you're gonna run the Department of Education for 4 years. Like okay, do you have a plan? Like do you know what you want to do for 4 years? Do you want to do that? Okay, you've been asked by the president to do it. Okay, yeah, you agree to do it, like, okay, well then who's going to take up after you when you get fucking tired of the job, right? And that's
yeah.
something I don't think like uh, who knows? Like I guess a lot of these people just think, oh, it would be the best for the job, or I'll just do this until I want. But then
Well,
even thinking about
luckily,
the
Trump's
American,
such an idiot boss. He can kind of just
yeah,
coast on the easy money. And, a lot of the people, they go from not being important to now having giant staffs and people doing their like laundry probably, and, cars taking them everywhere they need to go. There's a lot of perks to the job that I guess you get used to very fast and you don't want to give up,
yeah. No, I just
even
see
if you
like
don't
a
care
lot
about
of
the work.
yeah. And I also see like a lot of interesting things you could do to just like prevent burnout and keep like momentum going. Like I imagine at some point, like imagine your Department of Transportation, you come in like I want to do X and Y. You have two things you want to do. And it's like, okay, well the first one hits a roadblock because it's not legal, or you
Yeah.
can't do it, or it's going to take 3 years. And you're like, oh, well, I'll do the second thing. And like after a year, you're like, the second thing, it's not really going to pan out the way we thought. And it's like, okay, at that point, like you have, by your own like brain logic, you have nothing else you want to do. Why not give it up to someone else or start grooming someone like a deputy to take over for you? And then even for a political party, I think it's so funny. Like presidents, like we're kind of seeing that now. Like Trump isn't doing anything. Have you like is any members of the cabinet really doing anything like super like substantive or notable? That's not like obviously like the racism down at the border with ICE and immigration police, but like
No, they're really just kind of skating around the edges. You know, you got what is it, Duffy wanting like pull-up bars at airports, and like critique how everybody dresses, right? I guess I guess like the biggest thing that they're doing is they're just ruining a lot of stuff, right? Like they're firing a lot of people. They're disrespecting a lot of the career bureaucrats who know what they're doing. Like people like RFK, I guess, is pretty, you could maybe say transformational, as in he's just screwing up a lot of stuff and ending a lot of, like scientific research and things like that. Like that's, I guess, substantial, although most of it would probably be pretty negative, right?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I guess to some extent, like it's a cushy job. You probably get paid like $180,000 or more. You get to be on TV sometimes. I guess you get
Yeah,
to feel
right.
important. So maybe I'm underestimating the value of that, the perks of that as a job. But
Yeah. Let's see.
well, I
I
got one for
wanted to,
you. It's a
yeah, go ahead.
hypothetical. Like, are you familiar with the Chinese Cultural Revolution?
Yeah, a little bit.
I had a funny thought, like, as imagine Trump's approval rating goes down the shitter, and then Democrats take control. Like, could you imagine Donald Trump leading a type of American cultural revolution against all the bad conservatives who don't believe enough and aren't like enough in Trump's favor or something?
Um, I don't know. I don't think I think he might be too lazy to do that. And
Yeah, but
like,
do you
what would
think
he
he
do
would?
in relation to China? What, like go around and like demonize people wearing glasses and college degrees or something? Or
Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. It was just a funny thought I had. Maybe an
okay,
ideological purity test among conservatives who are trying to angle to try to win elections somewhere or something. But yeah, never mind.
okay. What do you make of the emperor's clothes kind of cult around Donald Trump because he's going around naming everything after himself? Like Republicans just going along with this new fleet of ships that Trump wants to build.
The battleships.
It's the Donald J. Trump and the Kennedy Center or whatever for like arts. And on top of that, as the Epstein stuff is blowing up and it's becoming increasingly likely that Trump is like a huge sex trafficker for decades, right? Isn't it really weird that like Republicans are just going down these rabbit holes of naming everything after Trump? And so, like, we're going to have the name of a giant, hopefully eventually outed sex trafficking like kingpin just named after everything. And like, why? I don't know. It'd be interesting if like more Republicans had more self-respect, right? Like, especially as this goes on. Like, do you think there's any chance that the 25th Amendment will be used? That like Trump's cabinet people will be like, "Hey, rape boy, we're gonna, you're out, resign now, or we're using the 25th Amendment."
I
Or
don't know.
Congress would be like, "Hey, resign now. We have the votes to impeach you, and like the votes in the Senate to convict."
Are Republic? I worry if like stuff does come out and Republicans just don't care and they make excuses. They say that was many years ago, or Trump. Trump
I
didn't
guess
know
I
how
wouldn't put it
young they
past
were.
them.
Yeah.
Well, and plus, there's just so many people don't have a career outside of a Trump administration, right? Like, no one's going to hire Stephen Miller, Christy Noem, Pete Hegseth to anything, right?
I mean, he will probably go back to Fox News, I imagine, and they'll probably put on the Chiron like, oh, previous Secretary of Defense, which will be
Yeah,
kind of sad and shameful. But I don't know. There's going to be a lot of people, I imagine, who still make a lot of money after Trump is gone. There'll still be
yeah,
a MAGA movement. I think the people who run next, even, especially if it's JD Vance, are going to talk about the MAGA movement. They're going to treat it as though it's the new conservative movement. And in a lot of ways, it really
yeah.
is. So.
And the bar is lower than ever before to make your own independent career. So people don't even need Newsmax or Fox News anymore. They can just start a podcast and start blaming everything on Israel and the Macrons. And like clearly, that's a very lucrative like pathway to like podcast and media success.
Yeah, the
But
market's been created and the path to profitability is
yeah,
quite clear.
do you think though that the Trump's kind of like sudden push to just name everything he possibly can after himself? Do you think that's a little bit of consciousness of his health decline and maybe his days are numbered, or like the dementia is like really kicking in?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if you're thinking about your legacy, he's thinking about it a little harder than
Yeah,
some
he's
other
thinking about it a
presidents are
lot.
in their second term.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll. I don't know. That'll be one of those things that's annoying when, like, just you walk into a post office or something, and it's a Donald J. Trump at the post office.
Yeah, I hope Republicans aren't as annoying with Trump as they were with Reagan, for just years and years of just, Reagan is this like mythical god that could do no wrong and everything possible should be named after Reagan and his name should never be used, I don't know, what word I'm trying to think about. But I wanted to ask, what about the class of warships? What do you make of that as a former Navy man? The Golden Fleet, that's just these massive battleships that some would argue are way too big. And then Trump wants them to have to be nuclear armed, which I would imagine most surface warfare captains and stuff don't want live nukes on their ships, probably, right? It's probably a big headache. And then you're like a massive sitting target to be maybe nuked or bombed yourself because you have a nuke on you.
Well, yeah, and the whole fact is, like, if you have a surface fleet and a surface action group going around and you have nukes on it, like that's like the first target. Like
Yeah.
you don't start war with America without like trying to take those ships out immediately. So that's not very good. The idea that like we're gonna go to bigger ships now when everyone's talking about smaller, more agile, faster ships with lower radar cross sections, and we're gonna build the biggest battleship we've ever built. Like that's silly. Like
Yeah.
and then it's like, an Arleigh Burke class destroyer is already like 2.2 billion a pop. What is a new brand, like a brand new battleship is? Like they've built like 70 destroyers, DDGs, and like so they're getting the cost down. The supply chain is intact. You're not
Right.
building the first one from scratch with a brand new supply chain. So like the idea that like everything we're seeing like drones and stuff get more sophisticated. In the 10 years it's going to take to build this battleship, like how much more sophisticated are drones going to get? Hypersonic missiles can take out chips in like one hit. Like it's a colossal like pipe dream that's somehow going to revolutionize naval warfare. It's silly that the president's trying to just make the biggest ship named after himself and all that. So yeah, I got I don't have a lot of like positive thoughts about the efficacy of the ship or the rationale of the cost of the taxpayer.
Yeah. Now, I really don't believe in litmus tests for the Democratic Party and for Democratic candidates in 2028 and like, in the midterms for Congress and stuff. But I do want to propose one litmus test, like obviously the most infamous example of Democrats all raising their hands in the debate stage in 2020 for who wants to give like what was it? Something to the effect of incarcerated illegal immigrants in prison, sex changes paid for by, like tax dollars. And they all, had to raise their hands to be, it was a very woke era in the moment. But I do propose one litmus test that every Democratic candidate has to swear that they will take off Trump's name of everything he puts it on day one. Do you agree with that?
I mean, directionally, yes. Like, like I wouldn't want them to be like the first. When they come in with a stack of
No,
executive
why not?
orders.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Number three, not number one. Number three. I will say this. I don't think we should tear down the ballroom if he builds it, and it's just like this gigantic, waste of money or whatever. I think, I don't know. Should that be something that we just waste so much taxpayer money on building this massive, super expensive ballroom and then tearing it down and then recreating, this, maybe less functional and smaller East Wing or whatever.
Well,
I
that's
don't know
like
if
the
I
weird
could
thing.
believe
Like,
that, but
yeah, I think there's room for like nuance. Like the fact that the ballroom is like legitimately needed, but like it didn't need to be built by like private interests who are donating money to like Trump as like obviously quid pro quo bribes. Like why would you
yeah.
not?
Apparently, by the way, there was some Wall Street. I didn't read it yet, but there's some Wall Street Journal report that Trump is like basically being caught selling pardons for $1 to $6 million each. That apparently there's like some kind of trail that he's kind of been straight up doing that quid pro quo. So
Well,
something to look forward to.
I heard a funny thing about pardons. I don't know if you've heard this before, but someone pointed out that like when the power of the pardon was created, like in the English royalty under like English common law, like there were like only three crimes you could be pardoned for, most of them punishable by death, and it was like basically like just like trying to destroy. I guess it was like treason, doing something bad against the king, and like some other high capital offense. So they were making an interesting legal argument that the idea that you can just pardon people for like horrible crimes that like aren't
For like
really.
for bank fraud and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
like
that.
yeah, the idea that you would like pardon someone for that is like that's not really what the idea historically of the pardon was for, but it's obviously been bastardized. Like, that's one
Yeah.
of those things that like obviously every president has some questionable like, last moment before the strike like the what is it, the clock strikes like noon or whatever,
Yeah.
January 6th. Like but like everything
Or
Trump it
January
takes it to an
20th.
yeah, yeah, or whatever the date, yeah. So like yeah, Trump's obviously taking it to an extreme. I think the idea of like selling pardons, like how, like
Yeah.
first off, like the idea that that's not like breaking some law. Like okay, like you can bribe someone, but as long as it's like related to a pardon, which the president has complete power over, and it's like I'm gonna go rob every bank I find and murder people, and then ask
And
for a
give Trump a
pardon.
million.
Yeah, and there's no bribe because it's related to pardon power of the president. That's
Yeah.
like that's ridiculous. But
It's
then
also
you
a
can
real
pardon
loophole
that
that,
too.
yeah. And a real loophole that, the president's minions can just do any amount of crimes. He can just blanket pardon them real quick. Yeah. Very annoying. I had some foreign policy questions. It's not one of our podcasts. We don't talk about a little bit of foreign policy. But do you think the U.S. will come to regret, like, let's say we keep like Europe keeps isolating itself from us. They realize the American people they shouldn't
I
put
think your
all of their
causation is backwards there. I don't know if Europe's trying to isolate themselves
no,
from
well,
us.
well. I guess I'm scrambling my question a little bit, but like as Europe figures out, hey, we need to have our own military, we need to have our own kind of economic bloc, we need to maybe refigure out our EU cohesion and figure out some kind of new federalist system that makes us a more functional kind of collection that's not just like a bunch of countries that are very separate with like one monetary system that one country vetoing can and like undo the entire bloc's like policies and stuff like that. But do you think in the future, like the U.S. will really come to regret Europe like no longer thinking of itself as a semi like vassal state of the U.S. Right? Like when we do economic sanctions, it only works because all of Europe's also on our side. Like our military kind of alliance is obviously helped by the fact that we have like what 450 million Europeans alongside us in terms of long-term competition with China and India with their massive populations. It helps to have a block of all Americans and Europeans for the most part. But do you think that that this is just like bad for both America and Europe? Just kind of a gigantic like unforced error to screw over both blocks.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that's a good way of framing it. I think like Europe going so long without having like a credible military that can do anything and then relying completely on America to begin with is probably bad. Like, there's a lot of people in Europe who complain about what America does, but sometimes there's issues that need to be addressed and Europe can't do it. So that's not good.
Yeah,
I think there's also a problem where they've, and it's like I read somewhere that France is a country, like France is a big country. It has a veto on the Security Council of the United Nations and stuff. They're a big country. They have a huge
they're
history of
nuclear
having,
armed.
yeah, nuclear armed. But like apparently the federal government of France spends 55% of all like tax, like, all, what is it, all tax revenues or something? 55, what was it? Maybe 55% of GDP gets spent on the people every single year. They have like retirements at like 62 or something, like really low. So like,
Hmm.
a lot of these countries have had the benefit of the nuclear, specifically military protection. I guess military protection and the nuclear security umbrella of the United States for decades, and they've kind of taken advantage of it in ways that
Yeah,
Trump is obviously giving credence to from an American perspective, whether or not he's like, the nuances of what he says are accurate or
yeah,
valid or not. But like, to some extent, like, yeah, I think Europe has kind of free rided a little bit. They can't I mean, they spend tons of money on their people, probably more than they can support, and they can't do anything internationally. And their power is kind of, I guess, waning a little bit, like because they can't do anything, right? So I think Trump basically pushing the European Union away and making them like wake up and realize they do need to be able to do things by themselves. They can't rely on the United States. The positive side of me thinks that like, okay, well, if Trump spends like the better part of two separate terms, 8 years total, convincing Europeans they can't rely on Americans and they need a military. It'll be really good for like an actually liberally minded president in the future who's a Democrat who wants to do anything, and Europe can help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe European countries have money to spend and go into debt on something that's not just more welfare for people or like ridiculously low retire. You know, granted, God love them. You know, if you can retire at 62 and get a pension from the federal government of your country for 40 years after that, like power to you. But like
Hmm.
as a society that wants to make a difference in the world, maybe that's not like the best thing for these European countries. And then not having a military, like the fact that like even across the Mediterranean, like 10 years ago, right? Like France and England or the UK couldn't do anything in Libya without direct American support, whether that's like tankers, like, you know, tankers flying in the air and refueling their
Yeah, like
planes
all the
or,
logistics of any kind of,
yeah, and the
trans
intel
international
support.
thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing that, you know, as usual, Trump is doing something that's directionally positive, but in the worst fucking possible way.
The most abrasive way
Yeah.
imaginable.
That was an incredibly
Yeah.
long-winded response to your question, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And like, obviously, you know, a rational American president who's liberally minded, like in a classical liberal sense, and cares about things like human rights and democracy and promoting those values abroad is always going to have a friend in Europe. I don't think Europe's going to back away from that. What, you know, what degree they, you know, pick themselves up and are able to operate as a bloc, operate as individual countries, operate a military that can do anything except defend, you know, Eastern Europe with a shit ton of American stuff, I think it'll be a positive thing.
Yeah, that's true. And I wanted to bring up Ukraine real quick. Ukraine's actually making big gains right now in several places, including one city that Russia kind of already took credit for liberating. And then like Zelensky went there, kind of like on the outskirts, said, "You don't have it, I'm right here." But yeah, so some good things for Ukraine going on. But it's interesting because that's something that like the Russian military has obviously been lying to Putin. There's no incentive for like Russian generals to be telling Putin the truth, right? And it's kind of interesting. It's the idea of like blowback that we might get to a point now with like just the Russian military being so kind of like mistreated and abused and just like such callous disregard for life that I just want to throw it out there that we might see like just an insane blowback kind of thing where all of a sudden like maybe the a massive collapse of the front lines, some revolution at home, like Putin's regime is like just got to be on like sinking in quicksand or something right now, and just something to keep in
Well,
mind. Any
what they
thoughts on
say is
that?
uh, what they say is like dictatorships are incredibly brittle, but at the same time incredibly strong until the second they break. So we
Yeah,
probably like no one, obviously, no one in America is probably going to see this. Like maybe if it does happen, like the intelligence agencies will have some idea of it. But I mean, I guess we'll see. I mean, I imagine that like they probably the one thing they've done their research on is like what caused like previous Russian armies to like mutiny. And I bet they have some pretty good data and research on how to avoid that. And I'm sure they're doing things that probably keep people in the front lines. Well, first off, people don't survive the front lines and they can't
yeah,
talk to each
right.
other. Like, in that kind of warfare, you probably can't use radios very much to talk to other people because then drones will come at you or, artillery. So yeah, I don't know. I feel for all those tens of thousands of poor, Russian people who are just on the front line somewhere, probably going to be hit by a Ukrainian drone in the next couple hours or
Yeah,
days. And you're probably, yeah, and your government doesn't care about you. The people can't do anything. And yeah, I don't know if you retreat, you'll be shot as you're retreating by your own side. And if you get injured, they'll put you back on the front line. Like, I think that,
yeah.
yeah, what a shitty situation.
Well, it's kind of interesting because some people are accusing Trump of like helping Russia right now with his like bombings in Venezuela and taking the tankers, and then like the bombing he just did in Nigeria. That he's like helping destabilize the price of oil because I think I saw that Russia like the international average of oil is something like $65 a barrel right now, and Russia's having to sell it for like $33, so like half off. So like obviously that's something Russia's kind of got the manpower to just keep wasting, just meat wave after meat wave in Ukraine. But the thing keeping the war afloat is, of course, the money that they're making from oil sales. But obviously, that's collapsing with sanctions. And then, like, meanwhile, it seems like every day I'm seeing some video of a new Ukrainian attack on some like oil refinery or, some part of the fossil fuel, distribution or logistical, supply and or transportation, of the fossil fuels that are keeping them afloat. So just kind of interesting. As you know, I wouldn't put it past Trump to once again be doing something that's maybe not in America's interest. You know, starting action, military action in Venezuela and Nigeria, but you know, might help Putin a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the longer it goes on, you can see it getting worse for Putin because Ukraine's already building like 3 million drones a year, and they're
Yeah,
obviously in a
and
total
they are
war.
saying that they are saying right now that like you know Russian bloggers and stuff are saying that there's like more Ukrainian drones than there are Russian soldiers. So they just have these meat waves where like increasingly they're sending guys like in groups of three at a time just to take some little position and leapfrog. But you know, increasingly it seems like as soon as you just go into that no man's land, you know, there's a whole bunch of drones scouting you out and you know bombing you.
Yeah, and there's other things like they're currently working on like their own ballistic missiles and stuff. So like Ukraine will get better at that over time. If if the war keeps going on and Ukraine wants to step up, I'm sure like there can be some clandestine type of technology sharing between Ukrainian militaries or something. Ukraine's obviously building quite the military, I guess, the industrial capability to build more of the stuff. Like right now, they're
Hmm.
building almost all their drones in country. They're working on
Yeah,
ballistic missiles. They produce a lot of their ammo and munitions in country as well. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's also bad things too because like I saw something how like Ukraine is increasingly like using pre shocking like means to like basically take people off the streets and force them in the military. So I don't think that's good. But well, I guess we'll see what happens. It's like which society can last longer.
yeah.
Ukrainian society, which is fighting for their independence and freedom and lives and to live a life they want, or you know, just Russian soldiers who are throwing themselves against highly defended areas and being having grenades dropped on them by by drones
Yeah.
every day.
Right. Maggie here says, I wonder if Central and South America, along with Mexico, will unite. I don't know about that, but there is kind of an interesting block. Obviously, like Trump is really like pressuring a lot of countries to elect right wing governments. I think I just saw Honduras, I think it was, just elected like the Trump approved right wing guy. Obviously, um, like they're trying to do regime change in Venezuela. I heard that Bolsonaro's son now it wants to run for president or whatever
Wow.
of Brazil. So that you know that's annoying. But there's you
Maybe
know
there's hope for
there
Donald Trump Jr. after all.
yeah, yeah. But there is always kind of like a push and pull between like right wing leaning governments and then much more left leaning socialist governments in South America. Um,
Well, I
but it's
mean, that's one
interesting,
of
you
the
know. Right
things that
now, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's one of the interesting things that like Peter Zeihan talks a lot about like the demographics of a country and like I don't think countries are gonna. We've talked about that how like you know whether or not South Korea will just disappear, but I think there is something to the fact that like a lot we're seeing this in a lot of societies where uh very like welfare programs and stuff for old people and stuff especially any type of social safety net type policies like it is kind of hitting a limit of just like people staying moderately healthy longer living decades longer and like a lot of societies that are having fewer people and the average age is going higher and higher and higher a lot of countries are struggling to just maintain you know the policies of the past and without pretty
Right,
substantial change I think that kind of explains the kind of push and pull we've seen it in America you see it in Latin America all the time as well of like from far left to far right from far left to far right and it's just unfortunate that a lot of political systems all around the world are just not coming up with solutions to stuff. Like, you know, you have a lot of left-leaning parties saying we need more socialism, we need more like welfare spending, we need, you know, we need to protect union pensions and stuff and government pensions. And you have like people instead of like living to 72, now they're living to their 90s, and like, you know, government's on the hook for just hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars that like they weren't intended to be on the hook 40 years ago. So I
right.
don't know. What are your thoughts on that? The fact that like we have huge political swings because like our political parties and the way most countries and I'll just use America for example, right? Like, you know, people want to cut like security or they want to expand it. They want to cut Medicare or expand it. And I don't think the right solution is either really. You know, you can't give everyone Medicare and not pay more. You know, that's not to say there aren't benefits to it and you can't make it work and fudge not fudge, but play with the math somewhere else and make it come out, you know, break even or, you know, even positive. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of like long term the maybe grain of like hopium or something with like all of Trump's dysfunction is just that the idea that like, you know, especially like a lot of countries are kind of coasting off of a post World War II kind of framework. Certainly America is like a lot of Western Europe, a lot of the liberal world order is like Western countries. But like, I guess one hope was that basically Trump would smash a bunch of stuff that is kind of lethargic and maybe obsolete, or at least kind of like was designed for an era that we are no longer living in, and that maybe then like a Democrat that follows Trump after all of the chaos could create new things that are a little more relevant to today's society. So I don't know, but I mean, it's such a struggle with democracy. It's like anything that you do. It's like Paris had those massive, massive protests from like all the farmers and everything, and like truck drivers and stuff in Canada for like anytime you have to have like, or you try to have like a little bit of a tax on like fossil fuels just to one, raise a little bit of money and maybe pay for some of the costs of fossil fuels. Like there's just so many people that those policies affect, and Republicans are kind of learning it right now. They want to get rid of Obamacare. I don't think they have good reasons for wanting to get rid of it, but certainly within their ideology, they think it's a giant problem and it's bad for America. But like, Republicans in Congress aren't necessarily willing to, undo the subsidies. I guess they kind of are now, but, there's probably going to be some vote in the future, especially as we head into a midterm election. I guess that's kind of a problem is just, you know, I don't want to say we have too many elections, but when you have a midterm and then it's when we have elections, well, I'm just saying we have elections every 2 years. Essentially, every government that comes in, you have like 1 year to do a lot of stuff, and then the second year is everyone's just like like digging into the trenches for the midterm turmoil and partisan fighting, and so. I don't know. It's like a lot of governments are just they don't have good solutions, and anything they try to do that's kind of marginal gets all this pushback, and then they
Well,
kind of back off because they don't want to lose the next election.
I just think there's like I agree with you, but I think there's so much low hanging fruit that there's like no one being a creative like policy entrepreneur and thinking of anything. Like for example, like what's stopping Democrats and Republicans right now from saying, "Hey, Gen X, if you're 45 years old, you have to wait 4 months longer to get Social Security." Boom, you just saved $100 billion. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
Yeah,
And you say, millennials, you have to wait 9 months to get Social Security. It's okay, you're in your 30s. When you're 65 or 66.4, you will get Social Security that Gen X got 3 months prior. And it's like, that's another $100 billion, right? Or like, for example, like, oh, the cap on Social Security spending is like this amount. Why don't we increase it by $400? Why don't we increase it by $1,000, five
yeah.
thousand? And it's like the
Or if you're
little,
like
it's like
50, if you have $50 million, it's X amount. Yeah, like a
yeah,
grading
and
scale
it's
of
like
just
yeah, it's like Macron in France, like having massive nationwide protests because he says, hey, maybe people having government pensions from 55 on and living into their 90s is not a good way to structure
yeah.
the like. There's no fucking money for that. Like I don't know, and you see that in every country right now, especially in countries that have far more tenuous like democracies than America does or European countries have. But
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts? Anything? Any notes that you have?
well, I wrote an article today. Everyone should check it out. But it's about whether or not Trump is transformational. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but
I
do you have
haven't
any?
yet.
Yeah, is Trump transformational? Do you think? Like, what does that word mean? And do you think Trump is just influential, or is he a Reagan, or is he FDR?
No, nothing, definitely not either of those. I think even within the premise of like his own kind of reason to campaign and win the election, he's not transformational, right? Like a lot of the stuff he's doing with Project 2025 is just executive orders. Like he's set massive records of executive orders, which of course those are precarious because executive orders can be undone by executive orders. He's really focused on the ballroom and all of these like superficial things and naming things after himself. So he's like very, very lazy. The things where his underlings are kind of going wild on are super unpopular because the underlings he picked are like morons or idiots or like blatantly corrupt. Or in the case of Stephen Miller, just look like fucking Nosferatu, look like a freaking vampire. So I would say he's not transformation at all. If anything, he's just like literally a placeholder based off of like a pissed off electorate that's like mad, like has valid reasons to be mad, but is just like being pointed at all the wrong culprits and like scapegoats or like things that are not causing their economic and maybe geopolitical misery.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, in my article, it kind of came down to the line of defining transformational as like whether or not like people of the other party feel obligated to do anything that you did or talk the way you did or just push policies the way they did.
Yeah.
So, like for example, like Republicans hated the New Deal, but they couldn't get rid of it after FDR. And similarly,
Yeah.
like, even Clinton after Reagan had 2 terms, but even in his second term, he was saying that like the era of big government is over in a very, kind of Reagan-esque kind of way in some ways.
Yeah.
And so what I came down to is just that, like, on the one hand, like Democrats still successfully run against everything Trump stands for. So that means he's not transformational because no one in the opposition is going to ever, uh, continue running or leading the country like he did. But
Yeah. Trump has been transformational for his own business interests. He got that
yeah,
Qatari jet that's being refurbished, I guess, for free for him from like the government and stuff like that. He's got these crypto coin that all these people have given money to. He's getting money for pardons. So,
yeah,
he's been transforming. I guess that's increasingly it's like I think Republicans should just be very upset with Trump because he's not doing anything for their long held goals. He's not ideological in any conservative fashion. He's really only concerned with himself and his own wealth and his own self-aggrandizement. So, yeah, not transformation at all.
yeah. Well,
But a President Mike Pence in
yeah.
2028, that's the transformation America needs.
Mike Pence, we
Yeah.
need him now more than ever.
Yeah. All right. I guess that's a good place to stop. Thanks everybody for listening so much to Brain Milk. I'm Dash McIntyre. This is Adrian Polk. Check out our podcast. I'm the Halfway Cafe on Substack or the Halfway Post everywhere else like Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky. Follow me there. What's your Substack, Adrian?
Adrian Polk.
Thoughts or something? Adrian Polk
Yeah,
Thoughts?
Adrian Polk thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Give him a follow. He's been writing a lot more frequently. And then follow me for a lot of jokes, humor, and juvenile satire. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Brain Milk out. Have a good rest of your weekend or week. I don't know what day it is. But see you, everybody. Have a good one.